let's pay tribute to the dedicated freedom fighter, the people's lawyer, and our negotiating lawyer, especially during the CODESA, and for his struggles for a better life for our people throughout his life. May he join the galaxy of our heroes, and our condolences to his family, to the legal fraternity, and to all the progressive forces. Our condolences also to all the family members and friends and colleagues of all other colleagues and comrades who have passed away during this period. Let me first thank you for this opportunity, for inviting me to be part of your Premier's Forum. I take it as a great honor and opportunity. Thank you very much. Just talking about, can you see the presentation?
Yes, Honorable Minister, we can see the presentation.
Okay, so let me start with the COVID. COVID has really demanded that government as a whole, all the three spheres, the country must respond and respond effectively. But COVID has also laid bare the fault lines in our country, like poverty, hunger, unemployment, inequality, apartheid spatial planning, and a lot of services that are not yet accessible to people, like it has also widened the digital divide. Though we, before COVID, we had done a lot to provide services to our people, but COVID showed us that there is still a lot more to be done. And of course, COVID, we've had pandemics, but I think COVID is the worst one we've had since the Spanish flu in 1918. And also we have had economic depressions, but I think this one will be in the magnitude, if not worse, of the 1929 Great Depression. But there are also lessons that we must learn, but link those lessons to our district development model. But just to recap what this country did in the 1918 pandemic, we didn't do very well. We lost 300,000 people within 6 weeks in what got termed to be the Black October. And I'll just quote from one of the newspapers then. It said, I quote, lamentably failed in rising promptly and effectively to the emergency. Instead of showing itself the provident and well-prepared authority that we have a right to expect, it showed a lack of imagination and initiative that were wholly deplorable. This was what was said about the Department of Health and the country in terms of responding to the pandemic. So it was very important for us to respond and make sure that we do not follow that trajectory of 1918. And I think we can say that we have reacted, led by our president and the provinces and the districts and municipalities. We've reacted fast. We acted fast and effectively, and we are where we are now because of all those efforts. But just to remind ourselves that it is the pandemic that depresses the economy, not the health intervention. Just as a recap to show that what we did during the lockdown is not new, something that was done even in the past. As you can see, this is a notice in the US in October 1918 that talks about closing of schools, churches, public and private, theaters, movie halls, pools, lodges, museums, everything was closed, just like we did ourselves. And people were quarantined, as you can see. So the things that we did had been done before. And those places that took these measures, they are the ones who actually succeeded better than those who didn't. But we adopted the risk-adjusted approach, which was to balance saving lives and livelihoods. And as you can see, we first went on level 5, which was to really lock down hard so that we flatten the curve and we minimize deaths. Because in the other countries where there were lots of deaths, they were not ready. So lots of people got sick at the same time, and a lot of them never had space in the hospitals. So they died even before they could get space in the hospital. So this was something that we had to avoid, and I think we can say we've avoided. And of course, the risk-adjusted strategy also looks at how the pandemic is behaving, but also saving lives. Now we are at level 2, as the Premier was saying. Level 2, the economy is pretty much open. There are a few places where, like in the gyms, in the taverns and places like that, where we say, and funerals, and where we still say 50 people, but most of the economy is now open. But that does not mean, as the Premier was saying, that we must now behave as though the pandemic is gone. Alcohol is open, tobacco is open, but alcohol is still 4 days. You can buy it off sale 4 days a week, Monday to Thursday, but the sit-down places, they are open every day. There's still a curfew that starts at 10. Social gatherings are now allowed, but up to only 50 people. And so, and movement, interprovincial movement is now allowed freely. So the risk is now higher than during the lockdown, the level 5 lockdown, because the virus does not move, it moves with the people. So the more people move, the more the chances of the virus to move. So that's why it's so important to keep the health protocols in place. The social distancing, the sanitizing, washing of hands, wearing of cloth masks, and masks generally. Reminding ourselves that no one is safe until you are all safe. Because when you are doing all those things, you're not only protecting yourself, but you are protecting other people around you. And as the Premier said also, the people who are over 60 are still encouraged to stay at home, work at home if possible. And also when we visit, because family and friends visits are allowed, up to 10 visitors at a time. But we should still maintain social distancing and wear masks, even when we are visiting family, because we tend to visit in an intergenerational way. The elderly with comorbidities are visited by young people who may have the virus but are asymptomatic. So it's important to keep to those. But obviously, as the figures are going down, there will be evaluation to see whether there are more things that need to be opened, since we still seem to be going down in terms of the figures. But as I said, the pandemic has opened up all our fault lines and shown us how deep they are. The GDP has gone down, as you saw, the employment, and so the economy, even before COVID, the economy wasn't doing well, but now it's worse. And as I said, hunger, poverty, unemployment, inequality has widened. But we must also remember that the municipalities have to collect revenue from citizens. And if citizens are unemployed, they are unlikely to pay, and therefore the municipalities will be affected in terms of revenue collection. And also, there might be more people who will fall into the indigent category. Just to show, in 2019, during this period, March to May, eThekwini raised 95.29% of their revenue, but this time it's only 77.87%. So they've already decreased their revenue collection. Msunduzi has decreased by 16%, Mhlathuze by 13%. Pretty much every municipality has decreased its collection. So it is important to remember that as we talk about what needs to be done. The lessons that we have learned during this pandemic are that it has catapulted us into using technology faster than we were going to use it, as we are meeting now in this fashion. So it has enabled us to also work fast, to take faster decisions and work effectively and take fast decisions. We have seen how agile government at all spheres has been. It has also accelerated the communication, bringing us closer to the people. And the presence of security apparatus in our communities has also reduced the level of crime. And the vast majority of people have heeded the call, wearing masks, social distancing, and sanitizing. But there are hardcore people who haven't. When you walk around or in some of our areas, lots of people are not wearing masks. They are behaving as though there's no pandemic. And that's the danger, because if we keep doing like that, then the next surge might come. Whereas if we were sticking to the health protocols, we could avoid another surge. We've also learned how to adapt, even as we were making these regulations. The first regulation, if you will recall, did not allow interprovincial movement, full stop. And then people started saying, but what about if we want to go to funerals? Then we adjusted that. Children who were left with one parent and they want to go to the other parent, we adjusted. So we were flexible and kept adapting the regulations as the need arose. And we must say that all spheres of government worked well, from national to the districts to the municipality. And I think that introduces us to look at the district model and how it's going to work, and what mischief are we trying to resolve with the district model. We're not replacing back to basics. Back to basics is fine, but we are fixing the way government works, because government all along has been working in silos. Even at the national, the departments work in silos. One department is doing something, the other one is doing its own thing, even if they are doing it in the same space. And sometimes even the departments themselves, inside the one department, you'll find that there are silos even there. So that's one of the things we're trying to resolve, that government should work in a coordinated and in an integrated manner. We also want to narrow the distance between government and the people, especially the two spheres, province and the national. But also we know that because the local sphere is the nearest to the people, people experience government through the local sphere. Whatever is wrong, even if it's not the mandate of the local sphere, people don't understand that. They take it's government, and they will fight with the councillor. They might even burn the councillor's house in some of the extreme instances, and burn the councillor's house for something that's not even a mandate of the local sphere. So whereas if we work together in a coordinated and integrated way, it will be easier. And of course, we also want to know what budget is going to a district, because the local municipalities have their own budget, the province, the national. We were not able to say in this district combined, this is the budget that is being used. But we also want to have an inclusive and a gender responsive budget. We are convinced that national, provincial, and local must budget like that, because we say there is equality, we say we are empowering women, but we don't know. Sitting here, we can't say how much of the budget is addressing women's and children's issues. So we need to be able to do that. And that will also maximize the impact of our budget. And also, we want to facilitate local economic development, so that in the end, we can, in a sustainable manner, have development in every district and promote the eradication of poverty, reduce unemployment, inequality, eradicate hunger, and create vibrant, prosperous, sustainable, climate-smart communities. So that's what we should be doing. But let's just always remind ourselves what local government is supposed to do, so that as we roll out the district development model, we make sure that all the things that a local government is supposed to do is done. If we look at the Constitution, there are 3 sections that I want to deal with. Section 152, that actually says that local government must provide democratic and accountable government for local communities. It must provide services in a sustainable manner. It must promote social and economic development. And that part of economic development is usually forgotten, except in the metros. But it's a very important aspect of what local government is supposed to do. Promote safe and healthy environment and encourage involvement of communities. And then under section 53, it spells out what are the developmental duties of the municipality. Administer the budgets and plan priorities to basic needs, but it also must promote social and economic development of communities. And it must participate in national and provincial development programs. But for it to do that, the Constitution says the national and the provincial governments must strengthen the capacity of municipality to perform their function. So that's what we are trying to do with the district development model, is to make sure that 154 from the national and province is implemented so that the municipalities can perform what is in 152 and 153. And of course, that needs also proper planning. And the white paper talks about integrated development planning, and it talks about long-term planning, 25-year planning. But if we then look at the RDP says that we must grow our economy through the provision of basic needs. So it envisages that as we provide basic needs, that will also contribute to economic growth. But RDP goes further to say we must seek to help people generate economic wealth in their chosen community. Now, this is a very important principle from the RDP, because for now, many people leave their chosen communities out of desperation, not out of choice, because they are desperate, there's no jobs, they are hungry, they think there are greener pastures elsewhere. And what do? They then go to, because we're in KZN, they then go to eThekwini, because they think eThekwini will be able to cater for them. But when they get there, the majority of them find that they don't have a house. Then eThekwini suddenly sees a lot of shacks. They have no electricity, water, schools. And so they don't find the greener pastures that they were looking for, but they swell the ranks of the urban poor. But what that does, it also retards the growth of Durban, eThekwini, because it means then instead of eThekwini dealing with its plans, with making sure that there is economic growth, that it provides basic services, it is forever under pressure to deal with the new informal settlements, try and provide services there. So neither the rural areas where they come from win, but Durban also doesn't win. And we sometimes wonder why it's declining, because instead of paying attention to tourism, to all the things that will make Durban grow, it has to also deal with the pressure of migration of people who come there. So it doesn't help to concentrate the growth in Durban. We must go out, as the RDP says, and have economic growth and assist people to develop wealth in their chosen communities. And of course, if we look at KZN as a whole, most of the opportunities and development is in eThekwini, 60%. And then there's underutilization of the strategic competitive advantage of other areas in KZN, lots of areas have got fertile land, there is a long coastline. So we must begin to look at every district and try to develop every district, and eThekwini will then also develop better. In other districts, in other parts of KZN, there's lots of poverty. Now, until I came to Kokta, honestly, I did not realize how poor KZN is. I knew it was poor. But if we take the 10 poorest districts in South Africa, 6 of those are in KZN, 3 are in the Eastern Cape, and 1 in Limpopo. So KZN is really, really poor. The poorest is Alfred Nzo, the second Mkhanyakude, third Zululand, fourth OR, sixth Mzinyati, fifth Mzinyati, sixth Harry Gwala, seventh Uthukela, eighth Amajuba, 9 Amathole, and 10 is Kukuni. So 6 of those come from KZN, which means there must be a concentration of work in those districts so that they can come out of being the top 10 poor districts. And of course, there is also limited skills in the province as a whole to take up even some of the opportunities. And so, which means the skills revolution has to happen in KZN. Not only the skills revolution of engineers, they are important and we must have them, but at every level, artisans, vocational training, TVETs, there must really be a skills revolution if we are to deal with these levels of poverty in KZN. And then there is also a lot of migration. I've spoken about migration from other districts to eThekwini, but even from eThekwini, the more skilled people from eThekwini then migrate to Gauteng and other provinces. And the challenges that are there also, there is crime, there is also, our cities generally are dirty. There is crime and grime. And some of the officials and some of the people are corrupt and some businesses are corrupt. And I just want to stress some, because we shouldn't paint everyone with the same brush. There are honest, ethical people as well. And in municipalities, sometimes there are challenges of governance, of administration, finance, and those challenges result in poor service delivery. The governance, I would say, it's mainly political. Sometimes there's infighting amongst the people in the council. Sometimes there's inappropriate relationship between the council and the administration. It becomes a scrambled or an omelette. You can't see where the administration starts and ends, where the political starts and ends. And sometimes there's poor oversight. Sometimes it's the coalitions that are not stable that create a problem of governance there. And then in administration, sometimes it's people who are employed who are not qualified in the top positions. Sometimes it's people who are also involved in politics and they bring the politics in the administration. Sometimes the posts are not filled because there's just no proper leadership to make sure that the posts are filled quickly. So, and sometimes it's people who come in who are good, but when the term finishes, new leadership comes, they don't assess and say, no, this was a good MM or a good CFO, or sometimes they just want to bring their new people. Those are some of the problems. And I won't go too much into the financial, because I think the Premier spoke about the audits. It's very few got clean audits, some got unqualified, but there are some that got adverse disclaimers, but some didn't even submit. And one of the things that is also a problem is that a lot of them use consultants, but we have nothing to show for it. They don't improve. Maybe instead of the money being used for consultants, they must hire professionals in the municipality that can assist. So these are some of the challenges, and then that results in poor service delivery. Some of the municipalities have got honest people trying to do their best, but they just don't have a revenue base, and so they are not able to attract the high-skilled, experienced professionals, and therefore not able to use their meat. And that's why now we are trying to strengthen MISA, so that MISA and the district can assist the municipalities, and at the district there could be shared services that can be shared by the locals, so that the locals are able to utilize their grants and be able to build the infrastructure. And we would like to canvass your support, Premier, and the MECs. What we are trying to do is to say to Treasury, maybe there must be some top slicing of meat, and the mayors, we hope they can support us, so that that top slice can be ring-fenced, and they can use that can be used for maintenance, because part of the problem is the maintenance of infrastructure. And then, because the infrastructure is not well maintained, some of the municipalities, even eThekwini, good as it is, it loses water. So if you buy water, you buy 100% water, you lose 30% of it or 20% of it before you sell it. It means already you have a debt that you cannot pay. That would be difficult to pay. And if you are a smaller municipality and you don't have a big revenue base, then that becomes a problem. But also for these municipalities that do not collect revenue, we hope in the budget forum we can all support one another, that the funding formula should be changed, so that it's not a one-size-fits-all, that everyone should be able to collect revenue for their operations. Now with COVID, I think we should also use COVID to reset the button in terms of our economy. We must take the opportunity to restructure our economy, its ownership. We must restructure how the set-asides, how they are available for small businesses, for women, for youth. We must also look at long-term planning, because long-term planning allows you to reimagine. It will allow us to reimagine KZN and say, in 25 years, we don't want to have the 6 poorest districts. And how are we going to do that? And we reimagine what we can do, and we put plans, we break them down 5 years, we break them then 1 year. But if we only plan for 5 years, you can't really reimagine KZN being new in 5 years and being totally different in 5 years. But you can reimagine it. If you look at a 25-year, 50-year horizon, the Chinese even look at a 100-year horizon. So coming to that, what do we learn? What have we learned from the Chinese in terms of how they reimagine their places? China, not so long ago, was poorer than Malawi, not even South Africa, poorer than Malawi. But look at where they are now. Why? Because they were able to reimagine and say, in 100 years, this is the China we want. So in 50 years, this is where we will be. In 25 years, this is where we'll be. In 10, in 5, in 1 year. And they've done that very well, and they are continuing to do that. But what they do, they first say, like now, we're looking at KZN. Let's say we look at every district and say, what does it have? What is its endowment? And they say, okay, what is its comparative advantage? What can this district do well, potentially do well? And then they say, okay, how can government play a facilitating role in promoting industrial upgrading and structural transformation of the economy in that particular district? So they look at how to massify and optimize industrial structure, how to marshal all society and structure partnerships, link communities to skills revolution, how to link the economic activities of localities to the district, interlink the districts within the province and the provinces, and that creates also a different South Africa. How do we also link to national, regional, and global markets? How do we use incentives to bring some of the investors, and how do we use SCZs and all that? Now let's look at KZN. What is the endowment of KZN before we go to districts generally? Of course, the most precious resource of any place is its people. And therefore, it's important to invest in the people, in their health, in their education, in their skills. And they'll figure out what to do with the rest. The other endowment is the coastline. We have about 580 kilometers of coastline. And we know that the ocean is a huge economic space. It's a huge economic frontier. If we can reimagine it, we can get a lot out of the ocean. And if we have got the ocean, then we also got the transport and logistic value chains. We've got 2 ports already, so the logistics and all the value chains linked to that. We have abundance of marine life, sardine runs. We have 36 species of whales and dolphins. We have 2 marine protected areas. We have good climate right through the year. We have breathtaking landscapes. We have nature reserves. We have wetlands. We have a World Heritage Site. And we have the Big 5. We have amazing bird life, rich cultural and historic sites. We have a rich history as a people, rich history as a province. Some of some places in South Africa have the cleanest air. And those places that have the cleanest air in South Africa are in KZN. And then we have land, communal land. So we are well endowed. The mining has declined. The manufacturing has declined, but that's what we come back to as our comparative advantage. This is just some of our endowment. You can think of many probably. And then if we look at our comparative advantage, we've got people. We are the second most populated province. We have fertile land, warm coastline. We can do both coastal tourism, floating tourism, and we have lots of tourism destinations within the province. We also border with 3 countries. We border with Swaziland, with Mozambique, with Lesotho. And of course, we have the Indian Ocean that connects us with the Asian countries. We have said tourist destination not only along the coast but inland. Entertainment can be our leisure, sports, our cultural tourism. We can build that. We have training facilities, and we are strategically located. We can build infrastructure, logistic platforms, trade and coal corridors. As I've said, we have 2 international ports and an international airport, and 78% of South Africa's cargo tonnage comes through those 2 ports with world-class educational facilities. And when we look at the river maps, we have the most water-abundant province. Look at our rivers. We have not highlighted the big ones except Tutugela, but that's the river map.
What I love about this district of Msunduzi is the wonderful mountains.
Yesterday, we just picked a few people to say what they think about the district. And because of time, we're just showing that one person that we interviewed about Msunduzi, because we need to get our people to understand and to really be part of the district model and the development in the districts. And then we look, and we're just looking at eThekwini there, the diversity and spread. We can look at the diversity and diversify our economy. And I think we must look at manufacturing coming back, not only in eThekwini, but in other parts of the province. We must enhance tourism, the tourism sector. We must build logistic hubs. We've got the N3, we've got the N2, we've got the N11, which connects us to other provinces. Of course, the ocean economy, the construction, we can be a shipbuilding place. We used to be, but we can still bring that back. We must resuscitate manufacturing because it's going down, not only in KZN, but generally in the country. But in KZN, it's quite, we can build an arts and film industry. We can also have tourism that depicts our history. I mean, you go to other countries, you find battle sites. We do have them here, but they make it exciting. They enact those wars, and they have very vibrant museums and so on. So we can do that as well. Now, if we just look at KZN with its 11 districts, starting from Umkhanyakude, which is the poorest within KZN, but it's got a rich ocean there. But let's just look at them one by one. Then I will start with the 3 eThekwini. eThekwini, you can do manufacturing, transport and logistics, agriculture, because eThekwini has a lot of agricultural land, agro-processing, fisheries, tourism, both coastal and floating. We do have floating tourism, but it's people who are floating past us. We don't have floating tourism that starts from us. It's cruises that come from other continents and just float past us. We can also have that ourselves. The transport, most of what we import and export, 90% goes through maritime highways. And we don't have vessels that even carry our flags. We don't have, if we have, there are very few. We don't have our own vessels that carry everything that we bring in or we take out. It's a whole area where we can improve. The fisheries, we can still do a lot more. Tourism, we can do a lot more to attract tourists in national tourism, but also continental and global. And of course, cultural and filming, we don't have even one filming studio that is of global standard in KZN. And yet the climate, our climate is even much better than Cape Town, which has. And now we need to look at a high-speed rail that connects Joburg and Durban. And Ilembe, it's got the ocean, so tourism, but also cultural tourism can be a big thing there. ICT, there's the cable, ICT cable that is under the sea. It passes there. Why can't we have a huge ICT hub there? Energy, we can have wind energy and other sorts of energy. In King Cetshwayo, we can look at manufacturing also. We can look at ecotourism, forestry, transport, and logistics. I'm just reimagining. I can be wrong, but I'm just showing that we can reimagine pretty much everything. If we go to Umkhanyakude, ecotourism, because it's got the wetlands, it connects with Mozambique. We can have an academic, we don't have a center that trains tourists. We can have a tourism academy there, and we can have fishing, farms, aquaculture, hydropower. If you look at Jozini Dam, the way it's constructed, you can actually do hydropower there. And I think I read somewhere that that's what it was meant to be, but somehow didn't happen. So we must reimagine every district. Zululand, it's got agriculture, forestry, you can do agro-processing. It can be a logistic hub, because if you look at it, it connects other provinces as well. There could be a lot of historic tourism there. Solar in every part of KZN, solar can be there. Amajuba, again, historic tourism, agriculture, ICT, manufacturing. You can manufacture hemp, cannabis, and agro-process it there. And you can even do textile from hemp and so on. So we really have to together agriculture, agro-processing. They are already doing some of the meats are done there. Tourism, historic battlefields, ecotourism, transport. I think there is also a tire factory there. You can look at other things. Gungundlovu, it can be an educational center, it can have agriculture, there's Sidara there, it can do a lot for us. Tourism, Herikwala, forestry, agriculture, agro-processing, it's cattle, especially dairy and other crops. Ecotourism, adventure tourism, and Herikwala has the cleanest air in South Africa. And this was said by Athletics South Africa, because they were baffled how a poor, dusty place can produce such good marathon runners. Because remember, the first African to win the New York Marathon came from there. And that baffled them. And then now with Mthembu, so they looked at what is it? Because this is a poor place, poor people. And they found two things, that it was the altitude and the clean air that gives a comparative advantage to the runners from that place. So why don't you take advantage of it and have a marathon training place or whatever? Ugu, ecotourism, agriculture. There is a big craze in the world about macadamia nuts, and they would grow well along that coast actually. Renewable energy is a harbor that is envisaged there. There's a small airport, a lot can be done there. Fishing, leisure, music and cultural facilities. Umzinyati, agriculture, agro-processing, maize, cultural and historic tourism. So these are just our own reimagined KZN. You can do it better, but we're just trying to show that we must reimagine KZN. We can't remain being having this 6 out of 10 poorest district. We cannot. So now looking at the short-term things about DDM, you recall that when we were there for the launch, there was a lot of talk about the Durban port, that it is not performing to its full potential, and that a lot should be done around there. I was talking to the Minister of Public Enterprises, He says that they are planned. He was telling me some plans, but we will be coming there before the end of October and bring all the players. But he assures me that some work is being done, some plans are there. But then he put a caveat that, these things are slow. So I said, no, we must not keep to the slow. Now COVID has taught us that we can be fast. But that's one area that needs to be unlocked, the port. And the other area that we think should be unlocked is cleaning the city. Just the city must be clean, and of course crime. And I think the city was beginning to look at the buildings that are empty and derelict. So those are some of the short-term things. And of course, we've learned a lot from COVID, and we must also apply some of the tactics that we have seen in COVID. And as I say, there are champions that the president has allocated right through the province. Durban, eThekwini, I think, has 2 champions, and all the other districts have champions. We will be working with them. We don't have a particular district because we have to ensure that every district works. So the first or second week of October will be physically there. We've started to have working sessions now in the districts. So that the eThekwini working session will be before the end of the second week of October, but we will let the province know properly, and the champions. We might also go to one more district, but the rollout now should be worked out between ourselves, the premiers, and the champions, because the president will not do another launch in KZN. He will be going to other provinces where he's not been. But now we will be concentrating on eThekwini ourselves, but we will also work with you and go to the other districts. But as we go to the other districts, we must really go there, having learned from eThekwini, that we must begin to study those districts, reimagine them, so that as we go to them, we look at all their endowments, their comparative advantage, and what can be done. Of course, from the governance side, we are, as I said, we are looking at giving some capacity to the municipalities that don't have enough. eThekwini has enough capacity. They could even share their capacity with some of the neighboring districts. So it's up to the premier, the districts, to work out, and you can work with us and the champions on where you want to, how you want to launch the other districts. But work is happening from our side. We are really looking at every district in the country, just from those 3 perspectives. What is its endowment? What can be done? We're very fascinated just looking at Zululand because of the logistic, it could be a logistic hub and so on. And when we come there, we'll have more time and we can really think together. Some of the things you have already thought, but some can be reimagined. But I think we must take a decision that in 25 years, KZN will not have the 6 poorest districts. that is a decision we must take, and we must do what it takes to get out of that. So in the consolidation of eThekwini, we'll be looking at the things that we had agreed when we were there, how far they've gone, how do we accelerate them, and we'll be working with you on all these other things to see what more can we do to begin to get the best benefit of the endowment of eThekwini, and which departments need to really play their part, and how do we bring that plan to make sure that the intergovernmental teams are working properly. And we know the economy is not doing well generally, but we should still be able to get on with some of the plans that we had agreed to in eThekwini. So these are the steps that we will be taking when we come there, but this can apply to every place. eThekwini, Amajuba, Zululand, Herigwala, Gugu, Tugela, will be looking at all those, and I will put quite a lot of concentration probably in KZN and Eastern Cape, because that's where most of the poor people live. And then Limpopo has Sekhukhune as the top 10. If we don't attend to the top 10, we'll never deal with poverty in this country. So, Premier, what I'm saying is that we will be coming there. We might spend a whole week between now and before the middle of October, actually. But we will work with your office through the COGTA MEC and work out what we come and do, who will bring, hearing from the COGTA and yourselves what you think we should, which departments, which entities we should come with, and really move things forward. You have your plans. They can be enhanced, but things must begin to move. I just want to end with this, because it's a quote I like very much, because it allows you to dream about the future and make the dream real. So this comes from Ben Okri. He says, we can redream this world and make the dream come real. Human beings are gods hidden from themselves. So just like China, they redreamed their world, and that dream has become real. I remember when I was foreign minister more than 10 years ago, the Chinese told us that they want to have the biggest ICT company in the world. And that time they were not even number 5. I don't even think they were in the top 10. But look at where they are now. So let's redream our world in KZN and make that dream come real. And let's remember that God works through human beings. So God will work through us to make the world that we want. It's all in our hands. Thank you, Premier. Thank you, colleagues, MECs, and thanks for listening.
Indeed, thanks, and it is in our hands. Thanks, Honorable Minister, because the Minister indicated that she will be leaving and joining another meeting at 11. Let me take this opportunity to invite few hands, either clarity or or comments, but very few. We're not going to take many hands so that we proceed quickly and allow the minister to join another meeting as she indicated. If there is anyone who want to comment on the presentation. Any comment? I'm checking hands and Isinkonyeni, you'll be the first.
Honorable Premier, Honorable Minister, good morning to you and good morning to all colleagues. Indeed, on behalf of all of us, I wish to express our heartfelt gratitude to you, Honorable Minister, especially around the fact that you have encouraged us to reimagine what we as champions and colleagues in municipalities can actually do. And what I really appreciate is that you are encouraging us to also look at our own endowments that are there. The ocean is one of those endowments that God has actually created and blessed us with. So as the province of KwaZulu-Natal, we have already started to pay more attention to what we as the province can actually benefit from the maritime, that sector, from that sector. We were reminding ourselves actually that even Operation Phakisa was launched here in this province of KwaZulu-Natal by the former president, President Zuma. So we are paying more attention on that. We have learned a lot, Honorable Minister, from COVID-19, especially around the issues of coordination and integration. At least now we have managed to work together as the provincial government of KwaZulu-Natal with the local municipalities. We will continue doing that because we have seen the positive side of working together.